I am Andrea Sturzik. I'm the acting dean of the Faculty of Education at the University of Regina.
I'm Valerie Mulholland, and I'm the Associate Dean of Student Services and Undergraduate Programs, and I'm just about to finish a 5-year term.
I would say that what we're going to talk about is our relationship with our partner programs. The University of Regina Faculty of Education has partner relationships with Nunavut Arctic College for the Nunavut Teacher Education Program. We also partner with the Gabriel Dumont Institute for the SUNTEP program, which is Saskatchewan Urban Native Teacher Education Program. And our final partner that I would draw attention to is, Val, can you do the acronym for?
YNTEP, the Yukon Native Teacher Education Program, and our partner is Yukon College in Whitehorse.
Mm-hmm. So we've had those relationships for varying degrees of time. SUNTEP is decades and decades.
So is
Yeah.
So is YNTEP.
And Nunavut Arctic College is roughly 10 years that we've worked with those partners to offer the teacher education programs in those communities. So it's teacher education, post-secondary. I would say there's a range of ages in the programs. I would say that for Nunavut Arctic College, there tend to be adult learners in those programs, but I would say that ranges from community to community because that program is offered not just in Iqaluit, it's offered as cohort models in different communities, and so it looks different it's all adults though. For Yukon, what would it look like?
There's a variety also, but I think that's true of all teacher education programs.
Mm-hmm.
But there would be direct entry from high school to adults who have worked in schools either as EAs or, in the case of the North, as teachers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
And then here at the SUNTEP Regina, and our partners would be able to say more about this, about the students that are in their programs. I know that originally when the program began, it used to be a lot of older students, mature students. And I know that more recently our partners at SUNTEP Regina have spoken about a shift and more students coming directly out of high school into the program.
Right. Although there are multi-generational students
Yes.
too, whose grandparents or parents have attended the program, so they have that kind of legacy.
Yeah. Our aim is to facilitate the work of our partners. They are responsible for their programs. We work to support their work. So our aim is to be good facilitators of that, be good partners, strengthen our relationships with our partners, respond to their needs and concerns, and all of that is geared towards, I would say, developing highly qualified, educated, community-minded Indigenous educators.
That's right, and there's a strong Indigenous component in all of these programs, but we provide administrative services also because the degree is granted through the University of Regina. So I like to describe our work as in service to our TEP partners.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes that looks like helping process admissions or, the day-to-day work of making sure credits are on transcripts. But it can also look like when our partners are innovating and doing things in ways that perhaps don't align with traditional practices of a university, we sometimes can help by cutting through red tape. So I think one recent example at SUNTEP Regina, and probably they'll speak to you more about their program, they've introduced Michif as a credit language class in their teacher education program. And Val worked quite hard to facilitate the vision they had.
Well, we've also recently developed after-degree programs. That's for students who have a previous degree who want to enter any of these programs. And prior to, there hadn't been a great demand, but there is now. So we did the background or technical work that's necessary to make that a legitimate degree or a recognized degree. But in general, anything that needs to be done, we always consult with our partners and act accordingly. So we don't impose.
I think it's a program that maybe shows how a settler institution can support the work of Indigenous education programs. I don't know. I'm not the kind of person who's going to say we're excellent. But I think there are ethical ways to enter into, that settler institutions can enter into relationships with Indigenous institutions, and we try to do that. And we're learning as we go. When I think about trying to support the work of my partners, when they set out things that they want support on, for example, our NTEP partners wanted a streamlined application process, so we worked with them to create one application form. They've asked, could we have a hood for our graduation ceremonies that looks more culturally specific to Nunavut? So I am facilitating that process so that the hood can be changed and look different from the U of R's. They've asked us to look at things like changes to which classes receive equivalency. So my success is, how do I gauge the success? It's, can I respond to my partner's needs in ways that don't compromise the education that the student is receiving, but that help me to be a good partner to those teacher ed programs. And I think that's my...
Yeah, I could give one other example of that too that would illustrate the point that Andrea just made. For all of the degrees that are granted through the University of Regina are certified in the province of Saskatchewan. And until recently, that required 6 credit hours in either French or English, the 2 colonizing languages. But 3 years ago, we made an amendment to that requirement so that students who have, say, 6 hours of credit, which all of our NTEP students have, that fulfilled the language requirement. And our argument was they already take the whole program in English. It seemed problematic to also expect 6 more credit hours in either English or French. So we considered that a step forward.
Suntep Regina's enrollment is higher than it's ever been. Last year they had to turn away students in that intake. These aren't things, though, that we would take credit for. That's, I think, the hard work of our community partners. I think enrollment, the 2 graduating classes in Nunavut, the one community has 7 graduates. Iqaluit, I think, has, I'm not really sure exactly, probably similar numbers. Those are good-sized numbers for those programs.
I think Yukon College is rebuilding, and the urgent need there is for language speakers to be graduated as teachers, and they're certainly focused on that at the present time. Mm-hmm. But I think the numbers could always be larger.
Yeah, I think it varies across our partners. Definitely there is demand in terms of the job market. The graduates of those programs are hired very quickly. I think from a few angles, yes, the demand is high. I guess the evaluation is, do our partners want to continue with us?
That's right.
And they do. We are negotiating contracts, extensions to contracts and renewed agreements. Well, actually, I think with all 3 in some ways, right now, and they want to renew with us. So from our perspective, I think that means we're doing a good job of being a partner because the relationship is continuing. I guess I would say Indigenous education is education that's in the hand of Indigenous peoples. It's not controlled by a Western institution like the University of Regina. But I would hesitate to try and describe or name it from my perspective because mine is a settler Canadian. So I would say the people to ask would probably be our partners at what it looks like, because I know it looks like very different things in all 3 of those programs that we partner with. And
I would agree.
Yeah. Val, do you want to say anything about the knowledge exchange from this fall?
No, because I only attended the beginning. I was the one responsible.
Could you just describe it, maybe?
We gathered together the instructors and the directors of all of the partner programs that we have named previously, and it was a 2-day event, and the agenda was set by our host institution, which in this case was Suntep, so Janice Thompson will be able to tell you more about that. But it was to reignite partnerships between the programs, that had probably suffered from lack of direct contact for a number of years. Apparently this had been done every 2 years in the past, and we decided to resurrect this practice of gathering leadership from all the TEPs together for a 2-day conference to talk about issues that are relevant to the TEPs. Mm-hmm. But they set the agenda. We provided beautiful space and excellent food.
I just want to do what I can to support the work of Indigenous educators. And so I do that by responding to needs and supporting. I don't presume to lead in this way or set vision, but I facilitate when asked.
I concur, and I'm going to repeat the term that I used earlier, the phrase I used earlier, which is we are in service to for as long as this is necessary. I think nations should have sovereignty and be in charge of the education of their own children.
Yeah. Ideally, we will go out of business in terms of having to be partners in this way, because places like Nunavut Arctic College will become universities, and they will have people from their communities being the instructors in these programs. The language of instruction will become Inuktitut throughout their courses, and we won't need to be in this role. So I think in terms of achieving vision, some of that is going to have to be answered by our partners. But I think that what we need to do is work to put ourselves out of business so that a settler institution doesn't have to be involved in any way. And that definitely takes support for those institutions. You can't run a master's program in education without additional funding. And infrastructure is required to take on a university, to go from being a college
all
to
of those functions.
Yeah. So my vision would be that those institutions are properly funded in the ways they need to become autonomous.
I'll give a concrete example. So currently all 3 TEPs that we are partnered with offer exclusively elementary education, K to 8. So at least theoretically they're generalist teachers, and there has each of the TEPs have said they've had an interest in secondary education so that they could extend K to 12. And it becomes a capacity issue because of the specialization that's necessary, because of the way knowledge is arbitrarily siloed. But that's an example of where additional funding could broaden programs in ways that we can't even imagine at this point, because we haven't experienced it.
Yeah.